church. Everybody all right? Y'all don't sound very enthusiastic. Hey, you should be real excited because this is known as Perfect Attended Sunday. You have not missed a Sunday this year, so pat yourself on the back and let's do some celebration after today. Hey, I messed up last worship service. Steve Salmon asked to say something, and I forgot. Steve, where'd you go? Oh.
I moved to the front. I was worried about
you. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. On Saturday, the 18th of January, there's an opportunity to be disciples of Christ. There's a group of us that started a year ago, and we serve groceries to the community in need. And everybody that's done it, that's been a part of it, will raise their hand and say, oh my gosh, it's a wonderful experience. And it is. But what we have decided is that for the month of January, Central Christian Church is going to provide all of the volunteers for this event. And it's 3 hours from 8:30 till 11:30 on Saturday morning. And if you want more information about it, ask me, ask Linda, ask any of the other people that have done this in the past, and we'll make sure you get what you need to be able to be there. Just want you to know that it is a wonderful, wonderful experience to do. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of good stuff going on around here. If you haven't figured that part out, you need to kind of pay attention to a lot of stuff going on in the bulletin. So let's do that together. We are moving into a new year, aren't we? Have you all already set your New Year's resolutions? You kind of wait until next year to do that. More importantly, are you still keeping them? I mean, I've already lost 20 pounds. I found them this morning, but I lost it earlier. So anyway, we need to keep hold of that. And so what we're going to do on this Sunday, as we start a new year, is kind of do our own resolutions as a congregation from things that I've kind of experienced over the course of probably the last few months. Things have really started to take some changes, I see, in our culture, in the church within the culture, which is pretty exciting. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But when I was thinking through all of this stuff we're going to kind of deal with on this day of worship, Isaiah kept popping up in my mind. The prophet Isaiah. You know, he's been around for a long time ago. Do you know that? So we're going to kind of go back some 2,700 years or so ago, give or take a decade, right? Around that time frame. So about 700 years before Jesus became a reality in our lives. And so there was this prophet Isaiah. And you did not want to be a prophet, right? Because prophets only came in when people were starting to be neglectful. But they didn't know they were being neglectful, right? They're just going through time, and they're going, man, this is great. Look at us. We're perfect. We're doing super stuff. And they start getting caught up in a lot of successes of life and all the things that they have, these aspirations that we want our nation to be this. I want my nation to do this. I want my people to be this. And so next thing you know, there's a struggle. And so the prophet is nothing more but the voice of God coming to these people and just saying, hey, look, we got to put the brakes on what you refer to as success or the good times, and we need to put that brakes on that and then go back to our original purpose. Because this is why we are here. This is what God needs from God's people. And so that's not an easy word to give, is it? Well, it's not if you know the prophets, because just about all of them were killed. So that's not a good record for that. So you don't want to sign up for that job to do that. It's not a fun job. But nonetheless, it's part of our responsibility as clergy to kind of do an assessment of where we are as a world and where the church is within it, and then try to tap the brakes a little bit and get us geared up in the direction that God needs us to go. So here's Isaiah, this prophet. And he is with these people, and I'm going to tell you why. Because these people he was dealing with at the time of our reading, which is the 43rd chapter, that these people were stuck, you know? They're kind of moving, but they weren't going anywhere. And sometimes they weren't even moving. They're just kind of slumbering a little bit. And they were stuck for two reasons. The first reason is that times were changing and changing fast. They didn't know what was coming at them, all right? I mean, you think about the world they were living in. It wasn't like it is today. It was a little bit different 2,700 years ago, right? It was different 20 years ago. So think about 2,700 years ago. But for them, technology was advancing pretty good. You know, it's like, oh, a rock, metal. Okay, so technology is really starting to pick up. And so the countries, the nations with the most resources were the ones who are capitalizing on that. And what do you do when you capitalize on that good stuff? You start getting more powerful. You start getting a little more arrogant, right? You start to try to dominate other people. The problem Israel had was that they wanted to be more like them. They want to get caught up in all that stuff that they were doing. They want to be the powerful nation. And so they became a part of wanting to be a part of what those powerful people were doing and schmoozing with them just a little bit so that their whole purpose as God's people was kind of pushed aside. And they forgot who they were. How'd that work out for them? Well, not good. Because those folks end up annihilating this powerful nation of Israel, was decimated, destroyed. People murdered in the streets. Things were on fire. People torn away from their own families, brought into slavery. It was horrific. And so that led to the second reason that they were stuck at this time of our reading. Because those images would not leave their mind. They were stuck because they went through this whole process of watching their people, their nation, their temple, their country, the ones they were responsible for God as God's people, get wiped out completely. Children of their own being torn away. People being murdered in streets. And they lost their whole purpose. They lived in fear. They couldn't move forward. If you would see the images that they had to see, you just kind of lose your confidence as God's people. You don't know which way is up. And they were stuck. And so now Isaiah comes back to these people after warning them, and now he sees them the way they are, and now that they're humbled and on the ground crying, what is his job then? Build them back up. Now that you're humble, now that you have my attention, I can build you to be the people that God needs you to be. And sometimes it takes devastation for us to wake up. It certainly was for the people of Israel. But what that meant is that they had to do things a little bit different. Because to be the people of God is a little bit different. Because being a people of God means that you no more make decisions based on what you think. What? We don't make decisions as a people of God based on what we know, or what we did in the past that led us to this point, or what we prefer. It was all those different opinions and thoughts that were not of God or come from God that led to their destruction. To be of God's people means that we have to put ourselves in a humble position to be able to hear and to rely on God for our direction. Rely on God to guide us, to direct us, to change us, and to point us in the future that God needs us to go. Israel forgot all about that. And so now Isaiah was to build them up and to remind them of who they were and to work with them as much as he could. And for years and years and years, he worked with these downtrodden people. And then all of a sudden, things started to change. Isaiah worked with this nation for years. And he pushed them to grow in their understanding of God. And then all of a sudden, things began to turn. All of a sudden, Isaiah could see a little sparkle come back in their eye. All of a sudden, he could see people suddenly turning to God. and they opened up their hearts, opened up their minds to new possibilities, to a new era of people who needed to be influenced by the grace of God through their good works and through their deeds. I think that was an exciting time for Isaiah. If he'd been fighting with people for decades and all of a sudden they go, oh, now I know what you mean. Now I see what you're saying. You could feel his excitement in this particular reading as people start to come alive again. And then Isaiah begins to reassure them, hey, folks, don't remember those old things that you've done. Don't remember those experiences of old. Don't think about that. I want you to focus on what God is doing, because God is doing a new thing. And we can see it, we can feel it, we can anticipate it. It's starting to spring up. You have to be able to perceive it. Can you not feel it, people? And then he moves on and talks a little bit more about how God is starting to open up the ears and the minds of people, and they're starting to receive it. And they're getting hungry again for God's justice in the way that God chooses to live our lives. They start to get hungry for peace that God has to offer them, and how God will be faithful to us through all courses of life. It's an exciting time for Isaiah. And it's not unlike what we're going through here at our day and time as well. It's very true for us today. You know, it's been well documented for a long time in our nation. Since the 1960s. You remember those days?
I wasn't born, but yes.
Oh, you weren't born. Okay. Well, back in the day, the church's decline has just been this direction. The church just hasn't been relevant to a growing amount of people. And the church struggled. Since 1960, the church has become less relevant to a nation, because a nation all of a sudden started shifting loyalties to what? Think about it. Economic success, right? Think about it. Advanced technologies, right? Started getting interested in worldly powers. That's what we became. And you know, the church, we got sucked right into that. We kind of got lost in that shuffle. That the mission of the church just became a back seat. And I can say this because I've been in ministry for 31 years. That's a long time. 31 years I've been doing this ministry while the church has been steadily in a decline, and trying to figure out what in the world is going on. And I can say, for the first time in my 57 years, 57 by the way, in my 57 years, I can see for the first time that the church is starting to wake up, starting to redefine itself once again. I'm starting to see that light in their eyes, that sparkle. I can see people turning to God who aren't even of God, and wanting something that only God can offer. I can see people opening up their hearts and their minds to new possibilities, to a new era of people who need to be influenced by the grace of God through your good works and your good deeds. It's exciting times. I don't know if you can feel it, but I can. Because God is doing a new thing. And God is doing a new thing with us. And we have been privileged, people, to be a part of the resurgent of the church. And mark my words, in the next 5 years, you're going to see the church doing this, and then slowly making an incline as we begin to redefine who we are and what we're supposed to be doing once again, because that is what people need, and that is what people want in this world. They want something to trust and to hold on to. They want a purpose and a vision for life, and that is what we have to offer, if we're faithful. If we're faithful. So here we're closing out a year. We're starting 2020. It's going to be an amazing year. And I'm excited about this year. So here's what I want us to do. I want to set some New Year's resolutions, okay? Who doesn't do New Year's resolutions, huh? Yeah. There's the problem, children, right there. Well, guess what? You just got them chosen for you. Okay? We're going to set 6, all right? And if you don't have a pen and paper or anything like that, or you're not taking pictures of it on your phone, you can go online and you can see this whole spiel. Even the little dance, little jig did. That's on there too. Free of charge. Okay? So we're going to set up some resolutions for today, and I think that this is going to be very important for us to really take to heart. So let's go through them. You ready? Number 1. Resolution number 1. We need to bring the Spirit of Christ back into the life of the church. This is something that we've strayed away from for decades, people, because we don't want to be like those holy rollers. You know? We want to be reasonable, rational people. Besides, we've built this country, we know how to do it. So we just kind of blocked out this understanding that this Spirit of God moves among us and calls us to do great things, magnificent things, changing things for the better, for the greater good of others, right? And so we need to kind of block out this idea that I have this relationship with God, and I got to go to this church, and I got to find out this relationship. I got to listen to this long, drawn-out sermon because I'm not going to understand it anyway. I'm just going to go home and do my own thing, and I just don't get God. I tried the God thing; it doesn't work. We have to get rid of that thought because the whole process is that God's presence is here, whether you like it or not. God is a part of your life, whether you recognize it or not. Our responsibility is not to see if we can go find God. Our responsibility is just go ahead and open ourselves up to it. Be aware of the presence that's already among us. So half your work is already done. It's not like you got to go to some app to look for God. It's already here. You just have to open yourself up to it. So we need to bring that Spirit back because that is the Spirit that challenges us and moves us and calls us to places that we don't even know that we're going to go yet. Got me? There's a lot of unpredictability when you're dealing with the Spirit, and it's all good. Promise you that, okay? Because when we do this, when we recognize that God is among us, and once we really strive to bring that Spirit back into our lives, it's then that we begin to fall in love with this Jesus character, right? We start to say, wow, look at the things that are going to happen. And it's this love affair that we have with Jesus that all of a sudden puts everything around us into perspective. All this stuff that we get for Christmas that's going to go in the storage bin, right? Or on the curb. Doesn't mean anything. Those people that we have in our lives, how can I put all myself into a person that won't respond to me? Well, put yourself into Christ and you'll be able to respond differently. It changes relationships and the way that you relate to people. It does. And so that's why Jesus always says, you got to put God first because it will define all the great relationships around you and put everything in perspective. But if you go straight to that person and try to have a relationship with them and make them up a little bit to make them like you, it's just not going to work. Fix your jacket. It's not going to work. So that's resolution 1. We've got to really connect with that Spirit. We've got to be able to pray more with our ears than with our mouths. Got me? Don't go in there with your wish list. And here's another thing you do with Dan Simmons now. If you could just make him shave that beard, I'd be a much better person. That's not what prayers are about. Listen to where God's leading us. Listen. All right? Second resolution. Very important one. Very passionate about this one. You need to see yourself, people, as a disciple of Jesus Christ. Got me? You are not a church member. You are far more worthy than a church member. All a church member does is sit around and say, I've kind of owned this seat and this pew cushion, and I'm a part of this, and I can vote, and I can fire the preacher, right? And then I can just make everybody else do what they want to do. And I have my stock in this position. Being a disciple of Jesus Christ is different than anything you'll ever do in your life. And different, folks, is good. Because being a disciple of Jesus means that you're choosing to do things differently that the world says you shouldn't do. Because now you're choosing to put other people before yourself. Because now you're choosing to reconcile broken relationships that have been busted for years, and you just don't want to deal with it. You're choosing to forgive people that you think there's just no way I can forgive them. You're choosing to do that. You're choosing to accept and to work with all types of people that our community say are worthless, and what other churches would even say are worthless. You are choosing to invite people to be a part of the grace of God so that they can find and define their lives. You are choosing to invite people to be a part of this atmosphere. Church members don't do that, folks, but disciples of Jesus Christ are expected to do that. And so we need to see ourselves as disciples of Jesus Christ, as we are called to be, and not a church member that just really doesn't know what they do. Because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in our world. Don't know if you knew that. Because people in our world are broken, just like you're broken. People in your world are seeking a life that is meaningful, just as you are seeking a life that is meaningful. The difference between a disciple of Jesus Christ and not being a disciple of Jesus Christ is that you have learned how to trust God. You have learned how to fall in love with this Jesus. You have learned how to understand how God's Spirit, or the Spirit of Jesus, lives in you and through you. The difference is you have something to share that other people need. And it is our responsibility to live the way that Christ lived so that other people may learn how to live. Does that make sense? All right. Number 3. There's only 20 of these, I think. How did this get on here? Oh, is that my grandson? Okay, we'll move on. Number 3, face your demons this year. Face your demons. Face your demons. Come toe to toe, nose to nose with your demons. And don't fool yourself, people. We all have them. We all have them. We all have them because it is what God has given us. God would have made it a whole lot easier, just made us all perfect like me. But it didn't work out that way. We need to come to terms with our demons. Because in the real faith, demons don't define who we are. Christ defines who we are. We just carry them with us, and we don't let them control who we are. We let Christ control who we are. If it was easy, everyone would do it, right? But it's not easy. We have to come face to face with them. You know, the old way of dealing with our demons was to just pretend like you don't have them, and then you go home and you take it out on your family, right? Don't believe that stuff you saw on the 50s TV shows of Leave It to Beaver. When we got inside their house and everyone is still nice to each other. Where does that happen? Right? We have to deal with our demons. We have to deal with them. We can't hide our issues anymore. We have to find people to help us walk through those. Because I guarantee you this, the mindset has always been this for some reason, that I am the only one who has problems, right? And all you guys are perfect. You go to church, right? You're perfect. The difference is, here we are, we all got our stuff. And there's only one person who's perfect. And we've already defined who that was, right? No, it wasn't me, it's Jesus. And that is one who comes and brings us together and calls us together and says, you know what, you got your crosses you have to bear. Big deal. Take them with you. Let's go out and change the world with them. That's how you allow Christ to define who you are and not your demons. So this year, whatever they are, let's deal with them. You're not going to get rid of them, but they're just not going to control who you are. Amen to that one? You're going to replace your demons with something else. That's resolution number 4. You're going to be grateful. My statement is, floggings will continue until morale improves. Be grateful, people. Oh, happy day. But seriously, being a grateful people has nothing to do with your circumstances in life. It has nothing to do with how you feel at that current time. It has nothing to do if your emotions are out of control. Being grateful is just this understanding that God has me in the palm of God's hand. And that God is everywhere and within me. And there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to shake that from me. And the things I'm going through right now are only temporary. I'll get through the other side. For that is a lot to be grateful for. Even if you're having a bad day, it is not much to say, thank you, God, for making my life. Thank you, God, for what you've given me. Thank you for this opportunity I have to share my life with somebody else to make a difference in this world. It has nothing to do with the circumstances we're in, but everything to do with our attitude. So make your life a life of gratefulness. In all things, be grateful, even if you have to force it out of your mouth. Do it. It takes a long time to make a habit. 21 days, I think, if you do it consistently, every day. Be grateful. All right, number 5. Here's your other one. Yeah, I heard the groaning. What was that? That's enemies, by the way. Love your enemies. And I'm not talking about Iran, your president, the next president, the president before that one, whatever. You know who your enemies are. You know who you're always at conflict with. You know who you're always at odds with. You might call them something else, but let's call them enemies. Love them anyway, because you cannot fight their battles. You do not want to fight their battles. And I am the worst, I promise you, of getting sucked into other people's drama. Man, I'm a suction cup for that kind of stuff. And what's wrong with me sometimes, I ask? All those therapy bills I have collected at the church house, at the house, but all that stuff, there's some things that just drive me nuts. But the reality is that there's some people who are just so stuck in life, and you know who they are, that the only way they know how to survive is to attack or to be angry, to draw attention. Walk away. Don't get caught up into that. Because all you can control is what you do. All you can control is how you respond to them. And so ultimately what we want to reach is the point where we actually can do this. Is hear that stuff unemotionally and invite them to be a part of your peace. That's all we can do. So love your enemies. Number 6. Oh, by the way, this is the last one, because I ran out of room. Just do your ministry. If you don't know what that is, that's why we have those discovery classes. Just do your ministry. Just do it. It's related to number 2, about being a disciple of Jesus Christ, because we're all here for a reason. And when you discover that reason why God is using you, then you become a minister. Yeah, Corey, you. even in your dreams. I know you're dreaming over there about ministry right now, Corey. So do it. We all have something to do. Because when we focus on our ministry, what are we not focusing on? We're not focusing on ourselves. We're not focusing about getting our way. We're not focusing on what Earl Gant's wearing to church. Boots. Did you wash them boots? We're not worried about that stuff. We're worried about putting ourselves in place of God to go and help and serve people who are in need. And that's what unites people. It's not about what we don't like about others. Because we serve a God who says that in all things, love is the answer. And we need to learn how to do things that really are unnatural for us to do. All those things we learned about homeless people and gay people and Muslims and our black people and immigrants and Jews, all that stuff that were embedded in us for some reason, flush it down the toilet and start focusing on love. Because we serve a Messiah who says that love is who we are and love is what works. So you must choose love. You got that? Capiche? All right. These are the 6 resolutions, and I expect a report next Sunday on how you're doing. But there's also something else that I want us to kind of get ready for. And that is what we do here at this table. And son-in-law, if you can flip that one more time, that one. We're on a personal name basis there. You have seen this on a Facebook post, haven't you? Some of these. Yeah. This, I think, is really defines the role of a person of faith. And we're fortunate. And every time we gather together, this table gets longer and longer and longer. And there's not a person on this earth that is not invited to it, that does not want to be, that cannot, is excluded from it. This is who we are, because this is who God is. This is who God showed us through his son, Jesus Christ. So our table gets longer. Our fences go down. And we love like everybody can be loved and needs to be loved, like you want to be loved. Follow me on that? So when we start these resolutions, let's always take the first one and say this table is open for every single human being that God has planted on this earth. It is our responsibility to be just as loving and receptive as God is. We can't forget that. We can't allow ourselves to think any differently. It has to start today, and by the end of the year, it'll be wonderful. Okay? Let's prepare for this table. Let us pray. We thank you, God, because you have come to us, but not just in some random place, in a little stable somewhere, but you enter us, all of our lives, so impersonally intertwined in our hearts and our minds that we can't shake you. Even if we could, we can't get rid of you. And so it was gratefulness that we come to you at this table, because not only did you do this then, but you do it at this table. When you're surrounded by friends and your very enemies, on the night that you were going to die, you still loved us. You fed us. You promised that you will return to us even after we kill you. Who does that? Who doesn't want to love like that? It's what we earn for. So help us to believe in ourselves the way you believe in us. Help us to love ourselves the way you love us. Help us to love one another the way you love us. That's all we can ask. And that's all you ask of us. So when we come to your table, God, Fill us with that Spirit. Be with us always, even to the end of the age. Amen.
We all start on the outside looking in.